With the Latin American International Championships 2023 coming up, and Paradox Rift being legal for the first time at this major international event, I asked the community for their LAIC metagame predictions, and over 200 respondents contributed. Today we'll look at the data from questions like what will the most popular decks be, and what deck will win the event. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more Pokemon TCG content. And if you'd like to find ways to support my channel and save yourself money on great products you're already going to purchase, check out the coupon codes and affiliate links down below. I'd also like to let you know about TCGBulk.com, a brand new service for connecting sellers of Pokemon TCG Bulk with people interested in buying it. And of course, if you're looking to improve at the Pokemon trading card game, I offer coaching on Metafy, as well as free and paid article and video content over there. So check out everything in the description down below to support my channel, subscribe to the channel, and now let's talk about the LAIC metagame predictions from the community. Thank you to the 235 people who responded to my LAIC 2023 TCG predictions survey. Each question uses the same set of possible answers, being 26 different Pokemon TCG archetypes. The first question on the survey was, what will the 5 most popular archetypes be in the Masters Division for Day 1? From these responses, we'll now do a top 10 countdown for the 10 most voted for decks for this question. Number 10 is Iron Valiant EX with 26 votes. Iron Valiant EX is a brand new card from Paradox Rift, and the community seems pretty skeptical about the archetype of Iron Valiant EX and exactly how to build decks using Iron Valiant. We've seen some Entei V Iron Valiant decks and also Jolteon VMAX Iron Valiant decks actually be some of the most successful for this new card in online events, but it makes sense that the community was not too sure that it'll be that popular at LAIC. Number 9 is Mew VMAX with 38 votes, and I do think this might be a little on the low side for Mew VMAX, but it does make sense that the community doesn't expect it to be that popular, at least in the top 5 most popular decks, since I do think a lot of the community sees Roaring Moon EX as a threat to Mew VMAX just because it's Dark type, and Mew is weak to Dark type, and they also see Charizard EX as a threat to Mew VMAX. But Mew VMAX is still very strong in my opinion, and I do think it could be a little more popular than the community expects at LAIC because it's a tried and true deck. We already know Mew VMAX is very, very good. For number 8, we have Lugia V-Star with 48 votes, and Lugia V-Star is similar to Mew VMAX in that it's been around for a while, and it's a very tried and true archetype that we know is strong. There's now a few different ways to build Lugia V-Star with either Single Strike or Colorless, or now with Iron Hands and Lightning Energy thanks to Earthen Vessel from Paradox Rift. So there are a few ways to build it. We already know the deck is very good, but I also think that it kind of makes sense that only 48 people voted for Lugia as one of the top 5 most popular decks, because I think that's a pretty accurate representation for the deck. It's pretty good, but not one of the best for this format. Number 7 is Lost Zone Box with 55 votes. And you're going to see a pretty huge jump between number 7 and number 6 in terms of the number of people voting for these to be the most popular. Lost Zone Box, I do think they got it right. The community got it right with this one. Lost Zone Box is pretty scared off by several new cards, including Iron Valiant EX and Iron Hands EX, and also the new Jirachi that prevents Lost Mine from hitting your benched Pokemon. So I think number 7 for popularity here with Lost Zone Box is pretty spot on from the community vote. Now on to number 6. Lost Zone Box at number 7 had 55 votes. Number 6, Miraidon EX Flaffy almost doubles to 101 votes. Miraidon EX did just win the Toronto Regionals piloted by JW Craywall, and it also gets the brand new Iron Hands EX as well. So that should be a pretty good addition to the deck. I'm not sure that the deck should be too warped around that new card, but at the very least it should help with its poor matchup against Lost Zone decks. It doesn't take an absurd amount of skill or understanding of the game to pilot Miraidon EX to a satisfactory rate, but it does have a decent amount of skill ceiling, where the more skillful you are, you can actually influence this deck a good bit with its several moving parts like Flaffy, Judge Path, and a multitude of different attackers. At number 5, just above Miraidon EX Flaffy, with 105 votes, is Giratina V-Star Lost Zone. I think this makes a lot of sense. The deck has been seeing a lot of success over at Japan's City Leagues, according to the reporting on PokemonBook.com, and Giratina V-Star Lost Zone is also a deck that doesn't have very poor matchups. Although it doesn't have many great matchups, it's nice to not have a lot of auto losses floating around and not really have to tech for a lot of things. Just playing the deck as we already know it to be built is already prepared enough for just about anything that can be thrown at it. Number 4 is Gardevoir EX. This is one of the decks that players were claiming would be dead with the release of Iron Hands EX and maybe even the TMD evolution, but that is just not the case. I think Gardevoir EX is still a very inherently powerful deck with so many good Psychic type cards and Psychic type support, and even just generalized cards that happen to pair very well with the deck archetype. It also gained Counter Catcher from the new set, as well as Screamtail and the new Luxurious Cape, so the deck even has a couple of new cards to play around with, and I do not think Gardevoir EX's time in the top decks is through, and it looks like the community at least thinks it will still be pretty popular with 139 votes and in 4th place. For the third most popular deck at LAIC predicted by the community, we have Charizard EX variants with 188 votes. Charizard EX hasn't been around for too long, and now we have probably the most refined deck lists we've ever seen for Charizard EX with these new Arven TM Evolution Bibarel builds from Charizard EX. So the community seems to have high hopes for how much representation this deck will have, and we'll later see how well they think it will convert into Day 2, Top 8, and maybe even winning the event. Number 2, we have Chien-Pao EX Baxcalibur, which received 198 votes. This, of course, received the new Iron Hands EX and also Earthen Vessel to help with Iron Hands EX needing Lightning Energy. And Chien-Pao Baxcalibur was already a top deck, maybe revered as like somewhere between the 3rd and 5th best deck in the previous standard format, and its worst matchup was Lost Zone Box. Now, Lost Zone Box is poor against Iron Hands EX, in theory at least, and Iron Hands EX is very easy to slot into Chien-Pao Baxcalibur. So we have an already good deck that was already played by a lot of players. A lot of people already have the cards for this, and now we have one new card that we can slot in, well, 2 if you count Earthen Vessel, 2 new cards to slot in, and you just kind of erase a very, very bad matchup and replace it with a pretty fine matchup in Lost Zone Box decks, and you even make your Gardevoir EX matchup a little bit better as well. And it's only surpassed by the number 1 deck with 221 votes. That means 221 out of 235 people who took this survey voted for Roaring Moon EX to be one of the most popular decks. Roaring Moon EX is a brand new archetype, so it's kind of surprising that the community has so much faith in it. Roaring Moon EX is seeing a lot of play online, but I do think that's partially because it being a new deck and it being a pretty easy deck to play, and it's also pretty easy to build on Pokemon TCG LAIC since they give you a lot of the cards just for free, just to start out with. So the community thinks Roaring Moon EX is going to be the number 1 most played deck at LAIC. Let me know in the comments down below if you didn't get to participate in this survey what you think about the community's votes for the top 10. And here we can see all 26 archetypes laid out on a bar graph for the most popular decks in Day 1. Of course, with those top 10 as I listed, but right behind Iron Valiant EX, we also had Goldengo EX at number 11 and Control at number 12. I think we can see a pretty sharp separation between those top 3, being Roaring Moon EX, Chien-Pao Baxcalibur, and Charizard EX. Then we have Gardevoir EX, kind of on its own, and then 2 more below that with Giratina V-Star Lost Zone and Miraidon EX Flaffy. I think going into LAIC, these top 6 decks, Miraidon EX Flaffy and up, if the community is correct with their predictions, these would be the 6 decks that you should be prepared to play against going into LAIC. Whereas decks like Lost Zone Box, Lugia V-Star, Mew VMAX, even maybe Iron Valiant EX, and then the 2 below that, Goldengo EX and Control, they could also show up. They will be played to some capacity, so there is always a chance that you could play against them. But I do think I agree with the community that at least for these top 3 decks, maybe I'd also toss in Giratina and Miraidon up there, although I do think Gardevoir EX is very good. I'm not sure if the community got that one right on how popular it will be. Now on to the next question. What will the 5 most popular archetypes be in the Masters Division Day 2? Let's see what the community said for this question. The 10th most voted for deck was Control with 21 votes. So we can see that 17 people voted that it would be in the most popular decks for Day 1. Whereas 21 people voted for it being in the most popular decks for Day 2. So just a tiny bit more faith in the deck for converting into Day 2 compared to how much representation it will see in Day 1. Number 9 is Lugia V-Star, also in a similar case here, 48 votes for being popular in Day 1 and 67 votes for being popular in Day 2. So a deck that will actually make it into Day 2 but not be as played in Day 1. Then for number 8, we have the opposite for Miraidon EX Flaffy, which got 101 votes for the Day 1 question, but only 83 for the Day 2 question. Still enough to put it here at the number 8 community predicted archetype for being most popular into Day 2. Next at number 7 is Lost Zone Box with 88 votes for being popular in Day 2, compared to its 55 for Day 1. So again here, just like with Lugia V-Star and Control, the community is expecting Lost Zone Box to have a better showing into Day 2 compared to its Day 1 meta share. Next is number 6, Mew VMAX, with 99 votes for being one of the most popular decks in Day 2, compared to only its 38 for Day 1. So that shows me that the community has the same kind of understanding about Mew VMAX that I currently see, is that Mew VMAX probably won't be very popular for Day 1, but it is a good deck for the tournament, so a lot of players will see success with it. Number 5, with 117 votes for being one of the most popular decks in Day 2, is Giratina V-Star Lost Zone, and its difference between its Day 1 votes and Day 2 votes actually are not very different at all. Next at number 4, we have Gardevoir EX with 152 votes for being one of the most popular decks into Day 2. Not too far off, again, from its Day 1. Number 3 is Roaring Moon EX with 161 votes for being one of the most popular decks in Day 2, where it had 221 votes for being one of the most popular decks in Day 1. It looks to be about 60 of those people did not also vote for it being one of the most popular decks in Day 2, which means the community is predicting that Roaring Moon EX will be the most played deck in Day 1, but it won't be the most successful deck at converting into Day 2. And then number 2 for being one of the most popular decks into Day 2 with 163 votes, just 2 more than Roaring Moon, is Charizard EX. And then finally, for the deck with the most votes to be one of the most popular decks in Day 2 is Chien Palback's Caliber at number 1 with 167 votes. So now that we've gone over the archetypes in the order that the community thinks will be the most popular into Day 1 and the most popular into Day 2, let's look at this bar graph that compares the votes for most popular Day 1 and most popular Day 2 decks. You can see with the help of blue being most popular Day 1 and red being Day 2, those kinds of comparisons about predicted conversion rates that I was mentioning. Looking at an archetype like Mew VMAX with less than 50 respondents choosing it as one of the most popular Day 1 decks, but almost 100 people choosing it as one of the most popular Day 2 decks. Having a lot of faith in how good Mew VMAX is, just not a lot of faith in how much it will be represented by meta share in Day 1. Seeing something similar, but not to as much of an extent, with Lugia V-Star, Lost Zone Box, and Giratina V-Star Lost Zone. Now for the third question from the survey. If I told you 8 different archetypes would make it to the top 8 in Masters Division, what would they be? So the respondents were invited to vote for 8 archetypes they would expect to be in the top 8 of the Masters Division. Number 10 is Control with 98 votes. Number 9 is Lugia V-Star with 130 votes. Number 8 is Giratina V-Star Lost Zone with 145 votes. Number 7 is Lost Zone Box with 148 votes. Number 6 is Miraidon EX Flaffy with 169 votes. Number 5 is Mew V Max with 173 votes. Number 4 is Gardevoir EX with 185 votes. Number 3 is Roaring Moon EX with 197 votes. And then tied for first and second is Chien-Pao Excalibur and Charizard EX, each with 201 votes. And if we look at this data here on the bar graph, it looks like the community was really together on this one, at least in terms of those top 4 to 6 decks. Chien-Pao Excalibur, Charizard EX, Roaring Moon EX, all very close together, but also not very far off from Gardevoir EX, Mew VMAX, and Miraidon EX Flaffy. Then we have a little drop off to Lost Zone Box and Giratina V-Star Lost Zone and Lugia V-Star. Another drop to Control, and then it seems there is just a little bit of significant faith in Iron Valiant EX and Goldingo EX to make it into top 8 at LAIC. The last question from the survey was pretty simple. What will win the event? With the same 26 decks as choices, here are the votes. Number 10 is Control. Number 9, Miraidon EX Flaffy. Number 8, Lost Zone Box. Number 7, Lugia V-Star. Number 6, Giratina V-Star Lost Zone. And now number 5 is Charizard EX. So I think Charizard EX has a fantastic chance of winning the event. I think it's actually really, really good. And it also promotes a lot of skill influence with these new builds, in my opinion. Number 4, Chien-Pao Excalibur, which I do think has a chance of winning the event, but I wouldn't have voted for it personally here with this question because I do think the deck has too much volatility in its consistency. And I also don't think that the best players are going to choose Chien-Pao Excalibur, but I could of course be wrong for that. Number 3 is Roaring Moon EX, and the deck is really aggressive, it's pretty consistent, but it gives a lot of opportunities to outplay it, so I don't think it will win the event. Number 2, Mew VMAX, and I was on a podcast recently where I was asked this question, and I said Mew VMAX would win the event. So number 2 here, the community says Mew VMAX, and it's one of the decks that I think definitely has a good chance of winning the event just because it is already so strong, and I think it's being really undervalued for this tournament. And finally, the community voted that the number 1 most likely deck to win LAIC in the Masters Division is Gardevoir EX. I think Gardevoir EX is an incredible deck. I've been playing it in online events recently myself to some success. But we'll have to see how well the top players are positioning Gardevoir EX going into the event. If it's a deck that they want to go through the trials and tribulations of playing, if it's really worth that, because it is hard to manage the time with Gardevoir EX, and it does have some tricky new cards to play around, like the Iron Hands EX as the main thing that this deck has to keep in mind. So now that we've gone through all the data, we can look at this final chart with the most popular for day 1 results, the most popular for day 2 results, the most likely to top 8 the event, and the most likely deck to win. This is the combined data from the responses from 235 community members. Thank you all for taking the survey, and if you would love to be included in something like this next time, just make sure you follow me on Twitter Twitter and you join my Discord and you're on the lookout for YouTube community posts, because I did share this a whole ton so that a lot of people who wanted to participate would hopefully see it and get a chance to be part of this. If you watched through to the end of the video, thank you so much. And if there's any different way you would love to see me analyze this data, or different questions that you would like me to ask, or anything that we could do differently, or anything that you really liked that you want to make sure that I keep doing, let me know about that in the comments down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. You can check out my sponsors, affiliates, and other ways to support me down in the description down below. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.